What if your missing child came back, but deep down you knew it wasn't really him? And what if an entire town, even a court of law, told you were wrong? That terrifying doubt is the heart of one of America's strangest disappearances. A little boy vanishes on a simple fishing trip. 8 months later, he's found hundreds of miles away. His parents rush to claim him, overjoyed, but a desperate mother shows up screaming,
"That's not your son. That's my boy!"
Who was telling the truth? Was it a case of mistaken identity, a stolen child, or something even darker? The answer, uncovered almost a century later, ripped a family's history apart. This is the unbelievable, heartbreaking story of Bobby Dunbar. It all started on a hot summer day in 1912, Lake Charles, Louisiana. 4-year-old Bobby Dunbar went on a fun fishing trip with his dad Percy and some family friends to Swayze Lake. Think picnics, sunshine, maybe catching a little fish. Pure, simple family fun. But then, chaos. Bobby vanished. Just gone. Poof. 1 minute he was playing near the water, the next, nothing. Panic set in immediately. His parents, Percy and Leslie, were devastated. They launched a massive search. Posters went up everywhere. Newspapers screamed about the missing boy. Rewards were offered. People searched swamps, woods, roads. But weeks turned into months. Hope started fading. It felt like Bobby had just disappeared into thin air. The Dunbars faced every parent's worst nightmare, the terrifying unknown. 8 agonizing months later, a ray of hope. Over 200 miles away in Mississippi, a traveling handyman named William Cantwell Walters was found with a little boy. Walters claimed the boy was his nephew, Bruce Anderson, the son of his sister, Julia. He said he was just traveling with the kid, looking for work. But when news of the found boy reached Lake Charles, something clicked for the Dunbars. They saw a picture in the paper. That looks like Bobby. Could it be, after all this time? They rushed to Mississippi. The moment they saw the child, Leslie Dunbar collapsed. She was absolutely certain. This grubby, confused little boy was her Bobby. She scooped him up, crying tears of pure relief. It seemed like a miracle. The lost boy was found. But the story wasn't that simple. Not even close. Enter Julia Anderson. She was poor, living hand to mouth, doing laundry and odd jobs. When she heard about the boy the Dunbars claimed as Bobby, she went ballistic. She traveled to Louisiana and confronted them, shouting,
"That's not Bobby Dunbar. That's my son, Bruce Anderson. That man Walters was my brother. He was taking care of Bruce."
Suddenly, the heartwarming reunion turned into a bitter, public tug-of-war over a child. 2 mothers, both utterly convinced this little boy belonged to them. The town of Lake Charles was buzzing. Who do you believe? The wealthy, respected Dunbars, pillars of the community, or Julia Anderson, a struggling single mom? The case exploded into a massive legal battle. It became a national sensation, splashed across newspapers coast to coast. The courtroom became the stage for this unbelievable drama, the Dunbars case. They pointed to physical features. His ears looked like Bobby's. He had a scar on his foot just where Bobby had a birthmark. Leslie swore she knew her son's body. Friends and relatives testified the boy recognized the Dunbar home, their dog, even called Leslie Mama. Julia Anderson's case. She brought witnesses who knew Bruce, neighbors, people who'd seen him with Walters. She showed photos of Bruce that looked strikingly like the found boy. She argued Walters was a good man, just down on his luck, caring for his nephew while she worked. She didn't have money for fancy lawyers. She just had her raw conviction. The boy himself. He was confused. Sometimes he seemed to respond to Bobby, sometimes he pulled away. He was just a scared little kid, caught between 2 worlds. His voice held the key, but he was too young and traumatized to clearly say, "I am Bruce," or "I am Bobby." The trial wasn't just about evidence. It was about power and perception. The Dunbars were well off, connected. Julia Anderson was poor and powerless. That mattered a lot. The judge leaned heavily on the recognition by the Dunbars and their friends. The physical similarities, while intriguing, weren't foolproof. The boy's own confused reactions were brushed aside. Ultimately, the judge ruled in favor of the Dunbars. The court declared the boy was Robert Dunbar. Julia Anderson was heartbroken, crushed. She fought desperately, but the system sided with wealth and social standing. She had to walk away, believing her son had been stolen from her. William Walters, the handyman, he was put on trial for kidnapping. The case was messy, relying heavily on the Dunbar identification and the judge's ruling. He was convicted and sent to prison. The Dunbars took Bobby home. Life, seemingly, went back to normal. Bobby Dunbar grew up, got married, had kids, lived a full life as a Dunbar. The mystery faded from headlines, becoming a strange family legend, but whispers and doubts never completely disappeared. For decades, the Dunbar family told the story of Bobby's miraculous return. But within the family, and among people who knew the history, there was always a question. Bobby Dunbar Jr., the found boy's son, grew up hearing the story. He saw old pictures of his dad as a child, next to pictures of the original Bobby Dunbar. They looked similar, sure, but were they identical? He heard the persistent rumors about Julia Anderson, the gnawing feeling that maybe, just maybe, his grandfather wasn't really a Dunbar by blood, started to eat at him. The official story felt shaky.
Nearly 100 years later, modern science offered a chance to find the truth.
Bobby Dunbar Jr. and his cousin, Margaret Dunbar Cutright, decided it was time. Enough whispers, enough doubt. They wanted to know, definitively, who their grandfather really was. They turned to DNA testing, the ultimate genetic fingerprint. They tracked down descendants of both the Dunbar bloodline and Julia Anderson's bloodline. Here's how it worked. They got DNA from a son of the original Bobby Dunbar's brother, a true Dunbar relative. They got DNA from a son of Julia Anderson, proving her genetic line. They got DNA from a son of the found boy, the man raised as Bobby Dunbar. The plan: compare the found boy's son's DNA to the true Dunbar relative and to Julia Anderson's relative. The results hit like a thunderbolt. The DNA test showed zero genetic match between the found boy's son and the true Dunbar relative. None. Nada. They weren't related by blood. But crucially, the DNA did show a match between the found boy's son and Julia Anderson's relative. The science was crystal clear. The boy raised as Bobby Dunbar was not a Dunbar. He was Bruce Anderson, Julia Anderson's son. The court in 1912 got it wrong. The Dunbars, despite their conviction, were mistaken. Julia Anderson had been telling the truth all along. Her son had been taken from her. So, what really happened back in 1912? The DNA answered the core question of identity, but the how and why remained partly shrouded in mystery. The most likely scenario? Bruce Anderson was genuinely with his uncle, William Walters. Walters wasn't a kidnapper. He was caring for his nephew while Julia worked. The Dunbars, desperate and grieving, saw a boy who resembled Bobby. In their intense longing, they convinced themselves it was him. Their certainty influenced others and overwhelmed Bruce's confused responses. The legal system favored the wealthy, respectable Dunbars over the poor, unknown Julia Anderson. Her truth was dismissed. William Walters was wrongly convicted based on mistaken identity and societal bias. He served time for a crime he likely didn't commit, taking his own nephew. Bruce Anderson lived his entire life as Bobby Dunbar. He likely never knew his true identity or his heartbroken mother. He became part of the Dunbar family, raised his own children as Dunbars, and died as Bobby Dunbar.